what happens if the human brain works at 100% capacity? A study by Harvard University researchers shows us what is the human brain? An antenna for the perception of this world, a complex biochemical mechanism that accumulates enormous energy to create information, an aggregator that allows the soul to interact with the physical world. There are a lot of versions and hypotheses. Modern science allows us to only partially understand the capabilities of our brain and determine the boundaries of its functions. In fact, the most interesting developments in the direction are classified. The fact is that it is extremely difficult to study the brain during a person's lifetime. Few people will agree to influence with its various drugs. It's not humane somehow. Considering that the result of the subject can be very different, often such studies are strictly, of course, classified. Back in the 1930s, the most daring experiments on living people were carried out in the laboratory in Germany and Japan. Thanks to this monstrous approach, important discoveries were made. For example, from the documents of a German neurosurgeon, the surgeon follows that the human brain contains areas that are not used during life. They admit that the possibility that when these areas are turned on, such superpowers as levitation, teleportation, instantaneous regeneration, interaction with physical and astral matters, connection to the new sphere that is your mind reading at a distance, object control, absorption of huge amounts of knowledge, and many other unthinkable properties can be revealed. It has now been proven that the human brain works at 20 to 25% of its maximum. It was previously thought that it was 10%, but in 2019, American, Japanese, and Australian neurophysiologists and psychologists came to the conclusion that after all, this is not so. Let's say that the studies are connected and the human brain really works at 25%, but what is the remaining 75%? The official science has no answer to this question yet. However, in China in 2017, the brain was studied at the time of the death of one of the terminally ill psychics. It turned out that immediately before the physical death of the body, his brain began to produce 5,000 times more energy than during life. This jump is difficult to explain, but at those seconds, the body of the dying person worked at an extreme life speed. Chinese scientists have calculated that at that moment, the energy released from the brain of one person would be enough to power the 4 largest districts in Shanghai. At the same time, brain functions were switched off one by one. The visual and auditory centers were the first to stop working, followed by the motor and speech centers, and the provision of the internal organs then died away. On the other hand, against the background of the vital brain centers turning off, unusual areas of the brain became more active. Scientists believe that at that moment, the energy information component of the body, someone calls it the soul, it went to the noosphere. Hypothetically, such an explanation can explain the activation of parts of the brain that were not used during life and the increased productivity of the organ, the brain. But is there a theoretical noosphere at all? Yes, there is. A lot of saints have found it. Now, not a single esoteric or psychic is known who would use the noosphere. They're wrong there. There's a lot of reports of saints doing this. Now, as a rule, they mean it, but when the time comes to somehow check it, all superpowers evaporate somehow. However, this does not change the fact that the human brain works only a quarter of its capacity, and what will happen if some incredibly gifted child will work at 50% or 100%? An interesting question, the answer to which scientists from Harvard University tried to give. With 40% of the brain's working capacity, they said, a person would be able to quickly regenerate damage to any tissues of the body. At 50%, psychic abilities would begin to appear. Telekinesis, telepathy, dreams from the future. I guess we're talking about prophecies. Levitation, they could not be used, but from time to time they would turn on involuntarily. At 60%, a person's memory could work at an extreme level. It would be enough to connect the brain to the internet with the help of special sensors, and in fact, the downloading of information and its memorization would begin. In the distant future, people will sleep with such a device, and the brain will remember the information that it needs before some important event. You sleep, and the brain conveniently remembers all what you need. At 70 to 80%, psychic abilities would reach a noticeable level. Now a person could control matters, elements, and what we used to call magic. There is a hypothesis that in ancient times, the first aliens who arrived on Earth from a destroyed planet possessed these properties, but due to other living conditions, the brain has degraded and many functions have faded. At 90%, a person would be able to destroy and collect objects with the help of a stream of elementary particles. It's likely that with such a level of brain workload, the energy informational essence of a person, a physical body, would no longer be needed. At 100%, absolute, an ideal, pure mind absorbing the knowledge accumulated by billions of civilizations of this and other worlds, complete conquest of all matters, complete lack of needs, independent from space and time. A person can simultaneously become an elementary particle or a whole galaxy or a cluster of galaxies. This is what Stanley Kubrick wanted to symbolically express in the final scene of the movie A Space Odyssey 2000. We agree with such theories are very superficial and unfounded. However, the same scientists did not stop there and continued their research. They came to the conclusion that the human brain works only at 20 to 25% capacity due to the fact that thought processes already consume up 40% of the body's energy. With the development of the brain and an increase in its functionality, the physical body will be depleted already by 50% of the organs' working capacity from the maximum. So our body is not suitable for the development of magic and other extrasensory abilities, at least according to the researchers from Harvard University. Several dozens of scientific institutes are engaged in the study of the human brain today in the world. The mass, shape, structure, brain functions of many people, both dead and living, both ordinary people and geniuses, are being studied. There is very little real progress in these studies and in understanding the functioning of the brain, and this is understandable. We all humans have a divine channel that connects us to the divine world. This is a thin, almost invisible energy channel that emerges from the top of the head. And through this channel, we are watched and they try to help us in evolutionary development, participating in our spiritual and creative development. A person in a dense material body is not able to levitate. This is fantasy. Only those with highly developed souls can exchange thoughts, connect to the information layer of the planet, and even teleport. I did recently upload a video of Maria Jesus from Italy, a nun that teleported to the New World, and even after her passing away, even after her dormition, and she was evangelizing to the Native Americans there. Now, only those with highly developed souls can exchange thoughts, connect to information of the layer of planet, and even teleport. Teleportation or movement in space. For this, a person must have a powerful soul in size and strength. Of course, these are divine graces given by God to people that He chooses, which creates an aura radiation around itself, and with the help of the aura, by spinning it around the soul cocoon and with a thought, a person can move. What should be the level of human development? We hope it's clear. There are almost no such people on Earth. In fact, the aura is a vehicle for teleportation, and all the talks and methods of teleportation are just exercises of the mind and the imagination. And it's a pity because it seems that we will never comprehend telekinesis and teleportation, at least not in our lifetime. Now, these various graces, prophecy, looking at a person and seeing all his past life, and even predicting his future, all this is graces from God. And they are even past and living Christian Orthodox saints that have these divine gifts. And when you meet a person that has this, you get jealous and you ask for these types of gifts. I have met such people, and I had confessed this to my father, my spiritual father confessor. He says, I said, I'm so jealous of these people. I want to have their types of graces. And he says, well, ask Jesus for them. And that's what Jesus meant by saying, seek and you will find, ask and it will be given to you. And even the Apostle Paul, St. Paul tells us in the New Testament, ask for these gifts because God will give them to you. And when people see them on you, they will believe in God. And that way you will become the fishers of men, bringing people to salvation. This is on Soul Ask. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Finally, support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.